Alright everybody, Balance with Boots was a reasonable success last time, so guess who I brought back today? It's Boots. Say hello, Boots.
It's me!
Oh, amazing. So we're going to do Balance with Boots again. There was a balance patch today that was kind of referred to on the AMA as a bonus balance patch, but I think this has actually been quite substantial. What do you think?
Yeah, well, I mean, it has wide-ranging effects on the game.
Absolutely.
And it's kind of crazy that it's just a bonus patch, but it's gonna have a lot of effects on the game.
So this is also Winter's Day. Now, last time I did one of these with you, Boots, it was also the famed mount controversy patch, which we hadn't looked at.
We hadn't looked at it yet,
again,
and so everybody was like, "You're not discussing the mounts. What are you doing?"
Yeah. So once again, I haven't actually read what else changed. As we talk about this right now, I only know about balance. So if they have added, mount contracts version 2.0, you guys will have to bear with us a little bit. But today we're just going to talk about balance. Boots has looked at half the classes, and he's going to tell me about them. I've looked at half the classes, and I'm going to tell him about them. And we will see how we go. So let's just jump straight into the general changes first, okay? I'll read this out, and then you can give your thoughts on it, yeah? So, a developer note. They say in this extra balance update, and again, extra, I mean, really, some of the stuff here, we're looking to reduce the overall burst potential of damaging conditions throughout the game. We've done this by reducing the number of condition stacks inflicted, while increasing the applied duration, so that the overall damage remains similar, with a bit of variance one way or the other. So, just on that, what do you think of that, Boots? Because I love this. I think this is really good.
I think it's a great idea. I talked about this on Sunday, and I think it's a great idea because it needed it.
So why? What's your thinking as to why this is good? So your condition skills will be the same effectually, guys. What's the essence of the change, though?
The meat of it is that you just won't have spike damage
exactly.
Or we'll try not. They're trying to make it so you won't have as much spike damage.
So what we've seen in the game, guys, is that on the question of condition damage versus flat power damage, for quite a while now, that distinction, particularly in certain settings like raiding, it really isn't that pronounced because Condi builds in Guild Wars 2 can be extremely spiky. They don't ramp. They don't steadily get stronger and stronger. They don't ramp enough, I should say, and generally. So what the devs are doing is they're differentiating between condition damage and power damage by exaggerating that ramp aspect. The damage will be around the same amount, so it's not necessarily a buff or a nerf, but ramp is now a more pronounced part of Condi builds, which helps to, change where you'd want to differentiate. Great word, right? Where you want to use these two types of damage. So I think it's really good. Exactly. It's important for the identity and space of various parts of the game. So
it has ramifications everywhere, though. It has ramifications in PvE because even though maybe the damage is about the same or maybe slightly higher, it means that if there's phases in PvE fights, for example, in raids, then you might want to take a power build that does the same amount of damage because it'll hit that damage and not have like the Condis removed before they could do their full damage. In PvP, it's going to be very good. A lot of people have been waiting for this for a while because there has been a lot of spike Condi damage, especially from Scourges. And if this could mitigate that a little bit, people will be happy, except for Scourges, obviously.
Yeah. This also represents a swing in direction as well because for a long time, a lot of these Condi changes, they were making them spikier. And that was always really frustrating to me. I think for PvP and World vs. World, it actually goes on both ends because you spike remove condis in this game. There's no such thing as removing a couple of stacks or decreasing. Yeah. There's a few ways to decrease duration, but so the counter, it needs to kind of be on both ends, sort of, I think. But this is a great start. This is what I like to see. And yes, it means that your average Condi build, if you're running around, say, in open world where you swap from target to target to target a lot, is going to feel a bit worse. But again, if you're playing a Condi build, I want to feel that kind of slowly toxifying someone and stacking them up and up, which Guild doesn't do enough.
And Condi was always supposed to be that too, because you don't need precision and ferocity to make Condi better. So you could always build it as a tougher character that is able to build it.
Yeah. So there's a lot of things I like about this. Also, if they keep pushing in this direction, what it means is eventually that once the proper baseline is established, right, and that it really does feel different, you can now have a special elite spec of certain build that does spiky Condi or rampy power. We see a couple of rampy power specs like Power Phantasm, Mesmer and stuff.
The one thing I want to say though is that I don't know how effective it's really going to be in the end for PvP stuff because you read the Thief part, so I don't know for sure, but I feel like there's a lot of things that that still have the potential of being spiky Condi damage, and it's going to be hard to change them.
Yeah, I think assessing it on that end is going to take quite a lot of actually playing that format. I just started PvPing again just this weekend, so anyway, we'll see. All right, so moving on, there's more stuff as well. They say, in addition, we've evaluated some of the vulnerability applications via traits, and we've reworked some of the guaranteed high uptime traits, pushing the vulnerability into more guaranteed but limited moments during combat. So what do you think of the vulnerability change? I like the idea of. I haven't seen on my specific classes that we're going to talk about in a second. I don't know if they've done enough, but the idea here is all these little traits in the game, guys, that have a % chance of putting vuln out, which means if you just get 10 people together, there's basically 25 vuln guaranteed. They're tuning that stuff away to be like, you get the vulnerability at specific moments, which is what I think that mechanic should be. I like the idea of vulnerability being a mechanic and something for buildcraft rather than just a guaranteed always there thing, because then what's the point?
Yeah, rather than just like one build giving 5 stacks all the time.
Yeah,
and
stuff like that.
All the time.
And they're just kind of boring traits. So I like the idea here. I don't know whether they've gone far enough. Do you have anything you want to add to that bit?
No, that's it.
Okay, and then finally, there have been a few specific changes to professions that they are improving the general health of the game. Now, guys, that last line, they may play that off as something small, but when we get to certain areas, there's some big stuff in there.
I don't know what you're talking about. You've been like...
I know.
As you were reading the patch notes silently, you were going, oh my god.
Yeah.
And I have no idea what you're talking about, so I'm ready for it.
Well,
now.
mostly it's just one big change, which most people watching this video probably are already vaguely aware of by the time they click it. Anyway, so some other general stuff. Let's talk about Barrier. Barrier I was really excited about. I did a big showcase on it on POF before it came out. I think it is an interesting mechanic, overhealing, a shield mechanic that could be used in some interesting spaces. Now, they've changed the way it works. Hopefully, this will be for the better and get more people to look at it. So, we don't have to rehash how Barrier worked before this patch. People will know. Yeah. So, the application of Barrier no longer resets the delay or decay of existing barriers. So what did we say on the very last boots balance with boots? What did we say about Barrier and juggling it? We were excited, right? Because they did a change.
We were excited because, they gave it the ability to be juggled. It's much easier because it starts decaying only after 2 seconds, so it'd be easier to juggle.
Yeah.
It'd be a fun build to try to do.
I never played with that in the end, but now they've removed that. That's gone. Juggling is gone. And you might think, oh, that's really sad. But listen to this, guys. Barrier no longer decays over time. Each application now disappears after 5 seconds. And all skills that grant Barrier are now 15% more effective.
So it seems to me as if this is going to be less of just buffing yourself up as much as possible and more like a reactive thing. You do stuff before a big hit comes in.
Yeah, it's kind of like another version of Aegis now, you know? It's an Aegis that doesn't pop on a single hit, but can be DPS through nonetheless. It's kind of like it's an Aegis with a bit more padding, I guess, as a mechanic. This is really interesting. So it instantly disappears, but it's up there longer. Very, very curious, and I kind of want to get in there and look at Scourge again now. Like, I'm thinking of the Scourge heal, for example. That stuff all seems really interesting to me. So there's that. Another significant change for some builds. This is along the lines of FGS, and I know some thieves will be salty about this, and we'll talk about that in a moment. But camera facing no longer reduces the travel distance of skills for movement skills. So do you want to describe to people what that mechanic is?
Well, I mean, skilled players or players who don't know what is going on will do this sometimes. Like there's players who do this by accident and they don't realize it, and then there's players who do this on purpose. They could face their camera a certain way to like make sure that certain movement skills that do a path along the way are shorter and thus more concentrated damage-wise. So that's basically it. So now it looks like it's going to be standardized and you won't be able to do this stuff anymore.
Yeah, so you look at how Guild Wars 2's changed, right? Because, if we rewind the clock enough, it was quickness and super speed and chills and cripples, camera movement, all of it affected how far your movement skills would go. And, they've just culled all of that out. They're really aggressively standardizing the system and that this does remove skill cap. I've got a lot of fond memories playing like a DDLE in PvP and deliberately looking down when I pop that fire 3 so that I don't move off the node and I cleave the body a bit harder or whatever. We all have thoughts of that. The most pronounced place, I think, is among the thieves community at the moment. At least daredevils with their staffs. You've got the staff 2 weakening strikes, and you'd aim the camera down, and it would proc multiple.
Also,
hits.
with like dodging in your smoke field for what's it called, for stealth is going to be a little bit different now.
Yep, absolutely. So I think that's a bit unfortunate, but hopefully balance that will come up will compensate for it. And I do agree with the idea of making the game like less fiddly, basically, right?
Yeah.
And more evident
what
things should be doing.
It's just a shame that high-end players are gonna not have this option anymore.
Yeah, definitely. And sometimes it's not even on the super high end, but there you go. So I think that's just par of the course, and similar to changes like the FGS change, just fiddly stuff. And I don't know, I think it's just an idea to try and make the combat system feel more polished, even if it has removed nuance. This will be a more controversial change, I think, from the patch, but there you have it. All right, and then finally, do you want to read this section out about interrupts and defiance skills?
Sure, yeah. So interrupts and defiance skills, traits, and sigils that have bonus effects when interrupting foes will now activate when used against foes with defiance spires as though they had been interrupted. Note that this does not require creature's defiance bar to be active, just that the creature is using a skill when the interrupt effect is applied. To prevent abuse, with bosses with long attack wind-ups, there's a 3-second cooldown between activation of these skills. I guess it means traits and sigils and stuff, the skills.
Right.
Has been added to the skills without existing cooldowns. So, this is great, because there's a lot of builds, interrupt builds in particular, that are fun to use in PvP in War vs. World, but have no use really in PvE. Because a lot of things have defiance bars, can never be interrupted, and so all of these things that proc off of interrupt never happen.
Absolutely. And I mean, POF just added some more interrupt sigils as well, like gained tons of ferocity and precision. I wanted to use on a variant of that gunslinging Deadeye that we talked about on your channel.
But so many things have defiance bars.
Yeah, exactly. Anything actually, once you get to champion and up, right? So
yeah, it'd be interesting to see if this thing actually affects raids in some ways, because warrior has, never mind, warrior has like the confusion on interrupt, but I guess it's not that much damage extra. But it'd be interesting to see if people use this as like an extra damage boost for raids.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think this is quite interesting. I'm looking at Ellie. The first thing that I thought, aside from sigils and stuff, is Lightning Rod on Ellie. I love that trait, but it doesn't really do too much. And so I'm even in game right now trying to use it on a Chak to see how it feels. And it's cool, but a 3-second internal cooldown, maybe that's a bit high for it to really have introduced a lot more interesting builds and stuff, but it's something, right? So I think that's a cool general change as well. And so there you go. That's the general stuff that they've done. And they list on the patch notes here just a ton of different, you've got sigils of rending, draining, absorption, ruthless severance, all the different traits, all that kind of stuff. So we don't have to go directly into them. Let's get into the profession-specific changes, shall we? So you've done half, I've done half. I guess first on the list...
Neither of us have done elementalist. And even though that's first on the list, we're going to do that last.
We'll do that at the end, yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess you're up first with NG, right?
Yep.
So you know about NG. I have no idea, and I'm ready and I'm excited, Boots. Teach us what has happened with Engineer.
Not a lot, but it's not. No, there are a few changes that are kind of interesting. To start off with, we could go with the first point: excessive energy. It says the trace functionality has changed to now cause vigor to grant you 10% damage increase. Before, it was when you're not at full endurance, you have a 10% damage increase.
Oh,
now it's just
this is that one. Okay.
Yeah, now it's just vigor. When you have vigor, 10% damage increase. So it's a lot more able to be used, I think. So the thing is, they've done this to a lot of the classes I have. Guardian has a similar thing, I think, or Ranger does, Warrior does as well. They've changed all of these traits that say something happens, usually just a damage increase, when you have low endurance or full endurance. They've changed that completely.
This is amazing. This was one of the big points that I talked about when I was looking at Power Engineer before. I love that it's vigor that they've gone with, because you get vigor on tool belt skills when you run tools, and that's the line, right? So
exactly,
it's got synergy with the original miner there. That's awesome.
Exactly. Yeah. So, and I would actually say that the other classes that have changes to this vigor, to this endurance thing, are more interesting. But it's good. It seems like they're trying to get away from like punishing people for dodging or forcing people to dodge when they don't have to.
Right. And I like that the Guild Wars did experiment with that as an idea in Buildcraft, but I think that this is the better way of doing it, definitely.
Yeah. So more interesting stuff is we've got a huge no-scope buff and a huge high caliber buff. So a big buff to certain traits in the firearms line.
So no-scope was Fury, wasn't it? When you under a certain proc or
yeah,
something?
you just got, I think it was like 4 seconds of Fury or something like that. 4 seconds of Fury with a 10-second internal cooldown if you are within a range threshold or outside of one or something.
Yeah. So that's changed.
Inside. So that's changed to... So now they've made the internal cooldown to 8 seconds so that if you have full boon duration, you'll have permanent Fury from it. It's not below that.
Oh, okay. So this is just a way of keeping Fury on the NG now.
Yeah. Now, on top of that, though, Fury, when you have it, grants 150 ferocity.
Oh, this is very... Thief's got a very similar thing to that, doesn't it?
Similar to Thief, yeah, but that basically, it's like a 10% damage buff, I guess.
Wow.
To firearms.
Wow,
Not
that's
bad.
really
Not
strong.
bad.
That's really cool. And what's that juxtaposed with, though? Pinpoint distribution. So it's a very clean... Do you want your subgroup to do well as a Condi subgroup, or are you in a power subgroup and then you can run no
Except I don't know. I don't think it's for other people, the ferocity.
No, I know, but it's still a decision that you're making. Do you want to go selfish or group wide with the Condi? That's cool.
Yeah, exactly. And also we have high caliber. The chance to inflict critical hits from within a certain range has gone up from 10% to 15%.
Nice.
That's another little buff. And heavy armor exploit is an interesting change. It's been renamed Sanguine Array, and I think the heavy armor exploit is the one that was...
That's vuln when you... like a
swiftness and vulnerability. So this is like the vulnerability thing that's getting taken away. And instead...
Which is in line with what they said earlier, right? Reducing passive vuln and stuff.
Exactly. And instead, it inflicts... it gives you stacks of might when you inflict bleeding. And you inflict bleeding off of critical hits in that line.
From the first miner,
and bleeding from a lot of other things. So you could probably easily stack 25 might.
Wow,
with
so
this.
wait. So on your rifle, you got blunderbuss, right? Which is 4 stacks of bleed if you're close to someone. Does that mean I get 4 might now from that skill?
That's right.
I got 8 from it. Why did I get 8? I guess I crit or something. What?
Did you get two stacks or yeah?
Oh, does it proc at all? I don't know. Anyway, that's really cool. What's the duration on the might like?
And there's no internal cooldown too, which is awesome. The duration I think is 4 seconds.
Okay, so bit of boon duration to roll with that, but that's cool.
Yeah, a nice thing to like put together with your Juggernaut maybe if you wanna run that. So you have a lot of. You don't need that new. You don't need what's it called, Scrapper to get 25 stacks of might anymore.
Yeah.
You can just run. Yeah.
I like it. I'm a big fan of Power NG, and this feels like a lot of Power NG love.
Yeah, and that's basically it for NG.
Really? So what was the rest of the changes? I see it's quite a big chunky section. Is that just Condi?
Just Condi changes. Everything's basically the same. Just reduced burst, but and maybe slight buffs because like a duration of an extra 0.5 seconds or something like that overall.
So you can get tons of solo might, tons of fury now, and you're not reliant on dodging for that extra buff. That's kind of cool. I like it. There's an open body roamy thing. All right, so let's scroll on down to. Should I do one of my classes now? Should we get to and then we'll go up to you?
Yeah, let's do one of yours, and we'll go back to.
So the first one on the list is Mesmer. This is the big change for the raiding scene, at the very least. We're gonna kick into it straight away, Boots. All right. With the first change up at the top, inspiring distortion. Do you want to tell the audience what inspiring distortion is?
No,
not oh no. This is a great change. Okay, I'm gonna stick my flag. So why don't you tell people what inspiring distortion is first, and then I'll tell people the change. What was inspiring distortion?
It was what was it? Whenever you used something or other, a signet, I think it was.
Okay.
No.
It was when you go domination, you gain distortion on signets. Inspiring distortion is whenever you
gave it to all your friends.
Yeah, whenever you gain distortion, it would pulse out like a quarter of a second distort to all your friends.
Yeah.
It was
so basically it was used in raids to like avoid a bunch of different mechanics.
Yeah. So this is a crucial mechanic, a crucial trait, one of the most profound, pivotal traits for the raiding scene, and it was a nondescript minor in the inspiration line. It's its effect was extremely potent and worthy of a grandmaster slot. At least there were several very peculiar.
Yeah. And it was this trait that still was forcing a lot of raid groups to always still take 2 mesmers.
Yeah, because Chronomancer is just so strong, has so much in its kit, and one of the biggest things it has is sharing distortion. So for the total noobs out there, distortion is a mesmer-only mechanic that functions as basically an invuln, but it's like a very, very strong one. But through this trait, being able to give this to your allies, you are essentially getting Guardian gameplay, but like turbocharged. Like Guardian's a big thing, is supposed to be pumping blocks out to your friends to help them avoid mechanics and stuff. Mesmers were doing that better than Guardians, really, just because they had a stronger version of Aegis that wouldn't go away. It could hit a lot of mechanics. The most important fight really on the raid scene that this was relevant for was the very first raid encounter we ever played, the Veil Guardian, where you could use this to avoid the arc attack, the green circles. And there were other places as well where if you have a good mesmer who was popping these, you could bypass a lot of mechanics. So the community is going to be split on this. They're going to be split because this is a skill-capped part of the game. This is something that says, hey, if you have a good mesmer, you can really excel. But it's also a part of the game that I think was wonkily designed, wasn't properly implemented, isn't transparent, and it's a part of the game I think that too significantly skews the outcomes of encounters for what it is. So I think I think this trait needed one of 2 directions. The devs needed to really say, okay, this is okay, but we have to make it a grandmaster slot. We have to make it, more obvious what's going on. I also think that the devs don't really want people messing around with quarter-second timings in an online game like this. I don't think they want it. I just don't. So even if people could reliably do it, I don't think that it was a kind of thing that they were really enjoying. You notice whenever there's something too fiddly, they kind of get rid of it,
Aegis isn't terrible, though.
So the change itself, what it is now is when you give yourself distortion, you will still gain distortion for yourself, but it's Aegis that goes to your friend. So
what does that mean? Like, what does Aegis not protect you against that distortion used to?
So greens are the big specific one at VG. You won't, but that won't help you. But I'll point something else out. Okay, so there's lots of different things to this. The other big downside to Aegis is, like at Demos, if you're standing in the wrong place between certain pizza segments in one of his things, people used to distort that. Now this will only give Aegis, so you have to make sure you only get hit by 1 packet of damage, and there's certain little things like that, which is skill cap in its own right. But I think VG is the really big one that this is going to change. But I like that they're using a mechanic that this is actually called for. Now, Boots, I'll remind you something from the start of this video as well. This did not, I do not believe, coincidentally come in at the same time as the barrier changes. Because barrier, as far as I remember, is a supplement to that green thing. I think you can stack barrier on people and do a no green VG anyway. But you do it through barrier, and I think those changes to that. So I think that there's actually a lot going on if you look at this patch in terms of like that preemptive mitigation techniques that people have. So this actually spells a lot out. I think the game is I like this. I like the look of this.
This might actually open the door for running a 9 comp. Like instead of having 2 mesmers, it really opens the door for having a firebrand bring your quickness and maybe a revenant do your alacrity.
Yeah, and I mean obviously Guardian itself does great Aegis spam. I don't know, hopefully this means something for build diversity. I'm not the most qualified person to talk about it, but on paper, I like the look at this. I think this is cool, and it's a profound change. That's the big change right there, Boots.
Well, it's great because I have a firebrand idea that does 100% quickness. I'm ready. I'm ready for this.
People will be sniping back and forth on this.
Does infinite. Yeah.
I just want you guys to be nice in the comments, please. Be nice in the comments when you talk about it, and let's see what we think. All right, so moving on. Other changes to Mesmer. Mirage, Ambush on Staff, Chaos, Vortex. That now like properly tracks and targets the foe as you use it. Okay. So that's the thing. A big quality of life change. Portal. What's the most annoying thing about using Portal, Boots?
Not knowing the range?
Not knowing the range. So, you walk really far away, you think you're in range, you drop the portal, and it's a dud. It doesn't trigger. Well, guess what? That can no longer be done. Poor Exuant, if I'm out of range of the original portal and I try and drop my exit, it won't let me anymore. It says out of range, and it just goes on a cheeky little 1 second ICD, as people can see on screen right now. So that's a nice little change that they did there.
I wish that it would have like little numbers on it while you're doing it that said, like, as you're moving away, it would reduce down to 0.
Oh yeah, that would be pretty interesting. I mean, you can sort of approximate that through some overlays and things, I think. So some other little things. Arcane Thievery. I love this skill, mostly because of my memories from it of Guild Wars 1. I'm not that excited by this patch, but it now gives you quickness and them slow. So I don't know, that's kind of interesting. You could use that for your mini quickness before a Signet of Inspiration or something. I'm not sure. It's also unblockable slow application, which might mean something somewhere, but I don't know. Lots of mantra changes. Now, these made me smile. I like mantras. I like power mesmer. And there's a lot of, like, mantra charging and stuff there. So the fully charged stuff. The Mantra of Recovery heals for 25% more. Mantra of Pain gives you 12 might instead of just 8.
When it's fully charged?
Yeah.
Or...
Yes, I believe.
Just in general.
In general, for Mantra of Recovery, some of these are only when they're fully charged. People can see the notes on the screen if they want. Most interesting to me, Mantra of Concentration is now quickness when it gets fully charged. So that's already a really strong one. That's stability and Aegis. It's you've got quickness there as well. So if you pop a Mantra of Concentration followed by a Signet of Inspiration now, that's a lot of stuff you suddenly just put out. Aegis, stab, and quickness to your entire subgroup. I like that skill. I really like that skill. And Mantra of Resolve no longer gives resistance, but it instead gives... it just cleanses all your condis. And I kind of like that too, because I don't know how much I associate resistance with Mesmer as a class. That's another thing I liked about the Distortion thing as well, because Aegis is more Mesmer. Anyway. So yeah, you got that.
Great. I love mantra buffs.
Slight change to Tides of Time with the wave coming back. They buffed this, so there is a condi change here on the Axe autos for Mirage, which were already, as far as I was aware, really strong. I've been playing quite a lot of Mirage in organized PvE.
Been strong, yeah.
And it's not even like a retune like they describe at the start, and we will see a lot of that in this video, guys. It's just stronger. Increased confusion stacks.
Increase the confusion stacks.
Yeah,
what?
and the duration from the player, and the second of those changes is the clone.
Did they not get the memo?
So I don't know. And then Phantasmal Seeking Axe increased the torment duration from 3 to 4.5. I guess they just wanted to load more power in Axe. I don't know why. I thought Mesmer was doing pretty good. Mirage was doing pretty good. But there you have it.
I guess they want more burst for that.
So
weird.
So there you go. That's Mesmer. And that's sort of what I took away from it. So I'm pretty excited. And there you have it.
All right. Okay. So you ready for Guardian? It's not quite as interesting as that.
All right. Okay. So yeah, I don't think anything else will top the Mesmer change there in terms of discussion for people. But there you have it. Give me the Guardian changes. We see a lot of Firebrand, DH, or just
a lot of everything actually. Well, it's just a lot of the Condi changes again, all very standard, very just same amount of damage.
This to me though, is it really significant? Because to me, Burn Guardian is the height of a spiky Condi build. Do you know what I mean? Like it is the biggest outlier right now. So did they really go?
I don't think it's gonna put it down a little bit in like PvP spikiness, but not too crazy. Like the things that will be a little bit bad is like Judge's Intervention. It's 3 stacks when you teleport and do 3 stacks.
Yeah, I remember.
It's now 1 stack for 8 seconds, and that is actually a nerf too, because it's like 8 seconds total instead of 9 seconds total.
I'm sort of okay with that because Judges always felt more like should be a utility choice rather than an aggression. Well, it's an aggressive utility, obviously, but do you get what I mean? It's not really a DPS.
Yeah, I do see what you mean. But the changes to it have not been so strong. Like, they didn't change Torch, really. They didn't change a lot of things. So it looks like it's not going to be that much of a nerf to the burstiness of it, but it's going to still nerf it a little bit. So
all right, I guess
won't
that's
be too upset with it.
I guess that's in line with the idea that this is a bonus patch, right? Or an extra.
Exactly. Yeah. Some interesting things. They changed the timing on the axe, but I've tested it and it doesn't feel that different.
Right, okay.
The first 2 attacks apparently go slightly faster and the last attack goes slightly slower. It really doesn't feel that different.
Okay.
And then one last thing. Merciful Intervention. You know, the thing that you...
it's like judges to an ally, right?
Exactly. It now also revives allies for 20% of their down health.
Oh, I like that. I really like that. That is cool, dude. That is Guardian-y. That is what people want when they pick a Guardian, right?
And it's AoE.
Damn, so you could just charge over to a cluster of body. Oh, that's great. That's really nice.
Yeah, it's pretty good. And that's about it for Guardian. Yeah, there you go.
Wow, okay. Is that bug fixed to quickfire anything major, by the way?
It allowed multiple applications after the just. I mean, it's just a bug fix. Quickfire has been.
We saw some bug
nerfed.
Fixes have very profound impacts though, like on Mirage recently and stuff. So I'm a bit scared of.
So it looks like it would reduce the damage even more than it has in the past. It's just Quickfire is getting many nerfs, and I don't know
whether this is so much.
Yeah,
worse.
It's not that impactful because I don't think people have been using it as much anymore.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, fair enough. So we'll swap back to one of mine, I guess. Next on the list that I remember doing is Rev. So we did a Boots Bad Rev very recently, didn't we?
Yes, we did.
So hopefully that's been on your mind.
Sure.
So the devs open up by talking about energy drain skills, which as far as I can tell just means upkeep skills. And I don't know why they've moved away from the term upkeep when they have that. But so like, if you guys don't know what I mean, it's stuff like Herald's full of them. Glint specifically, I should say, is full of them. Every legend has at least one. So Vengeful Hammers on Jarlath or whatever that drain your energy. The idea is that if you're going to try and cancel one of these, you can now cancel while in midair, which you couldn't do before. So it's just a little bit of quality of life. And I think there's another change that says you can turn them on while you're in midair as well. They're going to change to Death Strike. Death Strike I didn't recognize, but it's the new sword offhand skill that they added last patch, which I've been playing a bit with, and is so powerful. It's insane. And they just buffed it. I think it is. I mean, chill, slow, fury, 2 attacks, and a shadow step. It's like a lot of stuff. So they made it even easier to use now as well. So energy's been halved, and the cooldown has gone from 20 seconds to 15. So you can spam that bad boy a hell of a lot more. So you got that. The heal on the Ventari tablet wasn't appearing in combat logs, apparently. Now it is. A ton of Condi changes in line with what we talked about at the start. So, just to pick a random skill, Manifest Toxin. The poison was 2 stacks of poison that would last 6 seconds. Now, it's only 1 stack of poison, but it lasts 12. Overall, same damage, but we're talking about ramping a lot slower before you see all of that damage manifests. Just as we said before. And then at the bottom, they have something pretty cool. There's basically a new trait. It's a Devastation trait as well, so it's not Condi related. This is for the power players. I've always been a fan of Devastation. So, Mutilate Defenses, okay? That was your minor, the very first minor, and it was one of these traits that gave slow on crit or on hit vulnerability. There was no real play to it. It was just a thing that just bubbled vuln up. So, that's changed. It's now called Exposed Defenses. What it does is it means that your first attack when you're in combat will put vuln out, and it's going to be 5 stacks for 5 seconds. So you get to hit the guy harder at the start of the fight. And what this means, practically speaking, is all Devastation revs now will always have an active effect on their bar, marking the fact that when they enter combat, they're going to put 5 vuln out. Now, what's interesting about that is, and we've seen the devs played with this slowly over time, and it seems like they're doing it more, you can refresh it. It's not just 5 vuln at the start, and that's it. It does refresh, and it refreshes on elite skill usage.
Okay.
Which would be interesting enough, I think, on any class. But don't forget, this is Rev. You get double elite skills, and if you're a Ventari Rev, you get a pretty spammable one as well at that.
You get 3 spammable elite skills. You got the Ventari Rev. You got the form. What's his name? Malik's form.
Oh, that's true. You do.
And you have the Renegade one.
Oh yeah, because that's an upkeep. I guess you can toggle in and out, same as Malik's.
Yeah, all of them you can just toggle in and out. So yeah.
And there's no ICD on that, I guess, either. So anyway, that's pretty interesting, I think, and not a game changer, but I like the idea of what they're doing with the vuln there. So there you have it. Yeah, so that's Rev, as far as I could tell.
Okay.
Scared I missed something.
Yeah, it does seem like some of these things kind of put my Rev build that I just made on a lesser footing. The Condi variant, anyway. Oh well.
In certain formats, sure. All right, so where do you want to go to next? Ranger, I guess, right? Which was
I guess we do Ranger, yeah.
All right.
So Ranger's kind of interesting. Look at those percentages there.
Slash 16%, slice 45. What is this, sword main hand? Power stab 80%?
That's great sword auto attacks.
Oh my god.
Yeah. 80% on the final auto attack.
What is this? 80%. Yeah. Please tell me there's something that's like a trait has been butchered or something. Base damage has gone down or something. That's insane.
Yeah, it's a little crazy. So it looks like, well, I mean, power ranger, at least in raids, is, you know, the second cousin, kissing your sister kind of to the fire to the condition ranger. Nobody really uses it over the condition ranger, but maybe this will be enough to bring it up. Who knows? They tried to do something similar to the Reaper a while back, and that didn't really work. But maybe this will do it.
Damn.
We'll see what the damage numbers are.
Damn.
And yeah, same thing actually with some sword attacks too. Some sword attacks got some buffs. Okay. And also the power damage on the whirling defense of the axe.
So this is just all Power Ranger stuff, all of it.
All of that's Power Ranger stuff, yeah. Also, what do I got here? Again, a change to how the dodge roll thing works. Mm-hmm. So now instead of steady focus, you got farsighted. Okay. And it
sorry, what was steady focus? What did that do? What was that?
It was like you get a damage bonus when your endurance isn't full or something like that.
What was it? Like a marksmanship thing?
Or when your endurance is full. It was, yeah, marksmanship,
oh, I see,
10% bonus when your endurance is full.
Okay.
Now it's 5% bonus damage to projectile ranger skills, and then 10% if you're farther away than 600 feet.
Oh, they did a 6... Oh, that's nice. I like that. I was always sad at how they changed the auto on the longbow to de-emphasize that mechanic. That's cool.
Yeah, so now it's kind of a buff to, like, short bow, longbow mostly. But I guess if you've been not dodging ever or doing whatever it wanted you to do, it's kind of a nerf.
I guess, yeah.
To Ranger. It's definitely a nerf to Greatsword Ranger.
Well, aside from all the buffs.
Except for all the buffs, yeah. And then you got the Condi stuff, and there you go. That's basically it.
Wow. I see something there you've not picked up, but I really like. Grace of the Land, reduce the might gained by this trait from 4 to 3. The reason I like that is because they were very well-intentioned changes, I believe, on the big patch very recently on episode 1 of Banners for Boots. But
Grace of the Land was too easy to get the might.
Yeah, there's been no interesting play there. It's just been, on a jury, there you got all your might. So I actually really like that. In the name of build diversity, that nerf, I think, is a pretty interesting one. Hopefully that gives a bit more wiggle room for the Deadeyes, the Phalanx Strength Warriors, and so on.
Mm-hmm. Maybe it's not quite as hard, or not quite as easy as it was before. Maybe they actually have to play really, really well to get.
Well, I mean, how effective that change is, I don't know. I'm not in an informed enough position to know, but I like the spirit of it. That's the point. I like the spirit of it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I guess what that puts us onto what's my last class to talk about? I haven't talked about 4, have I? Oh yeah, Necro. Ooh, okay. So this is obviously a Condi heavy class. So as you would expect, there's a lot of those changes essentially that they were talking about up there at the start. Immediately, like Feast of Corruption there on your scepter. Torment has been adjusted from 2 stacks for 4 seconds, 1 for 8. It's just exactly the same most of the way through. It's funny to see Deathly Chill on this list as well, by the way. The Reaper one that's apply bleed on when you apply chill. Because it's like I said, they changed Deathly Chill to be the spikier version kind of recently. And now they've just, like, gone back. But it's okay, all in the name of progression. So, I guess we'll see that. Now, there are some things to pick at a little bit lower down. A lot of people were hoping that this would be the big Scourge nerf for PvP because they have been extremely dominant. I don't know whether these ramp changes go the whole way. The ramp changes do help because it gives people more opportunity to cleanse, okay, when they're in the PvP surrounded. But so much of what Scourge is strong for, I think, is wide area point control and also the corruption, the flipping of boons into Condis, and none of that actually really changes here, I think. So I'm not too sure about that. But that's a huge number of the things that they're talking about. Even underwater stuff, I think we're seeing here. Harrowing Wave, I think that's underwater, isn't it? Anyway, Axe, there is some power changes. Axe does get its buffs. This is what I was laughing at earlier, Boots. They did
10% buff to Axe. Woo!
Yeah, so Axe is funny because they keep doing this. Now, PvEers will sneer and laugh, like I just mentioned. I laugh.
Yeah.
It is funny
no,
though.
Strong.
It
it's
is funny
in
in PvP. It's not even that much. I mean, it depends what level you're playing at, obviously. But you would be surprised what some of those power necros can slam you with on that Axe, right? It really is. So, and it's gone up a little bit more. Now you'll notice there's a trait change, which I'll talk about in a second, which does key into this. But 10%, 11%, 13%. Just keep scraping that Axe up there. Doomfire had a bug for Scourges. Sorry, what were you gonna say?
I was just gonna say it feels like they're gonna keep buffing Axe by 10% every couple of months, and then like 2 years down the line, it'll just be like the best DPS.
But no one
will
have noticed, right?
Nobody would have noticed until it's too late.
Yeah, and then it will have like 50% reduction across the board or something. It'll be ridiculous. Yeah, there is a slight bit extra to this. So Doomfire. For Scourges, apparently there was a bug that meant it wasn't applying as much as it should be, which is funny because I always felt like that was a strong synergy, but there it is.
Isn't that like this? They have bug-fist Doomfire like in the last 12 patches, I'm telling you.
Look, it's slowly getting there, okay? It's slowly getting there. Death's Embrace. So the Vun change rears its head again here. They've increased the Vuln that it applies to 5, and the duration all the way up to 8. So that's a huge buff, you might think. Oh my gods. But... and even they've increased the chance it will take to proc. It used to only proc below 33% health. Now it's 50, but it will only do it once every 10 seconds now.
Oh, okay.
So again, it's like spikier. It's the Vuln that's rolling around is like spikier, and it's at specific intervals now. And I like the idea of the game where people unload. It's not rotation based, but it's key abilities are utilized when you see vulnerability is high at the same time as other things. You know, that's what I like the idea of. So it's emergent. You're constantly on your toes.
So, but this does put a max on the amount of vulnerability it could give then, though.
Definitely, yes, it does. Definitely.
Okay.
So there's less variance there, I guess, too. Next, you got Unholy Fervor. New trait, essentially, a bit like what Revs had. I really like the flavor of this trait. I love this, okay? So it's been... so first, let's just talk about what Unholy Fervor was. Unholy Fervor was the 10% damage on Axe skills.
Okay.
So now you look back at the Axe buff there, and it kind of makes sense. What it means is you're not going to double those up. You guys might think, oh, so there's no buff at all. There actually is, because now basically that trait has been rolled in baseline, basically. And that is profound. Because there was an annoying juxtaposition, I think, in Spite when you were trying to take that trait. If you wanted to buff your Axe, it was very rarely felt good. I think it was against Spinal Shivers at low health or something, which was always really strong and you didn't want to get rid of. So anyway, it's now basically baseline, and we kind of just get a free new trait to play with. It's called Dread. And what it does is it's a power trait. We already have a trait that affects fear, making the fear do damage, okay? This one is kind of the power version of it, a power equivalent for the Spite line instead of the, God, what's the other line? I forget, Curses line.
Curses, yeah.
And so what it means is now when you apply fear, you put 10 stacks of Vuln on them at the same time, and you do 20% more damage to feared enemies. 20%. So, and you guys might think, yeah, but it's only fear, it's really short duration. Just think about certain things like Reaper, right? You pop your Reaper Shroud, you double tap that 3 in Shroud, you feared them away, and then you slam them with the Executioner's Axe, right? It's great. I really like a lot of this stuff. Or being able to drop a fear wall and then you chain someone down with that newly buffed Axe 2 with the 20% damage buff. I like it. I really like it.
Reminds me kind of Lightning Rod one. Not Lightning Rod, but the elementalist trait that gives 20% damage when they're knocked down or stunned.
Tempest Defense, yeah. So there's another thing as well that I really like about this, and it's a juxtaposition that's going on. So you either take Dread or another new trait, which was Awaken the Pain from last patch. Remember, they changed it so that you could take a trait that meant Might gave you more power and less Condi, essentially doubling the power that Might gives you for power builds. Right. And this is a really cool juxtaposition, guys, because Awaken the Pain is the obvious choice to make in a raid scenario where there's tons of Might around constantly, and fear uptime isn't that important and won't be there much. Dread is really good in world versus world PvE scenarios, or certain aspects of PvE, I guess, where you don't have that constant Might around to guarantee the Awaken the Pain, but you are likely to create spiky windows and get a lot of use out of fear. It's really smart. It's very good. So I love that trait. I love that trait. I think it's really good. And then finally, Spiteful Talisman, another spite change. Okay, this is do 5% more damage to foes without boons, and it reduced your focus recharges. Well, now it also reduces your axe recharges.
Oh, cool.
Which it might have inherited from Unholy Fervor, which is now deleted. I don't know. I can't remember. So anyway, this is all good. I really like the spite changes. Fun stuff for Necro, and there you have it. That's
very
that's
nice.
That one.
Very nice. Okay,
so have you got one more for us?
I got one more. It's the warrior.
All right, let's hear it, Boots.
All right, so first point, reckless dodge.
You had quite an extraordinary gasp while you were reading these. I remember earlier on the last change.
Yes,
so
I was a little upset by something,
okay.
But I knew it was gonna come probably at some point. I just didn't expect it now. Reckless dodge. This attack has its own skill. Whatever, doesn't matter. Basically, it does the same thing as it is before, but it also grants 1 stack of might for 5 seconds for each foe struck.
Okay, so isn't
that
a crazy buff for your crazy dodgy thing?
Yeah. It buffs, and it's a great buff for Might Make Right, because it's like a built-in might gainer, built-in getting back your endurance after dodging.
Yeah, that's such a crazy minor now.
I know.
That's insane, dude.
But I'm just gonna skip to the last point right now to make you sad.
Oh, okay.
Might makes right. Reduced endurance gain per might stack from 5 to 2.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah.
Because that synergy would have been too strong.
Yeah, they didn't touch the healing aspect because it didn't really matter that much. It was the endurance that was always the amazing thing about it. Anyway,
that is very, very strong because they're both in the strength line as well. So you dodge gives you the might, gives you the endurance to dodge that gives you the might. I mean, come on, that had to be nerfed.
Well, Might Makes Right was always way too strong. I don't know if they over-nerfed it just now, but they definitely nerfed it, and it's a little sad for me.
From 5 to 2, yeah. Maybe it's a bit too much.
It was broken at 5 for sure, though. Now, what else do we have? We have... instead of the 10% extra damage on the stick and move the dodge thing, where you have to dodge, and when you're low endurance, you always gain 10% damage boost. Instead of that, we got Pinnacle of Strength. Very interesting thing here. Might that you have on you grants you an additional 10 power per stack.
What? That's like the Necro thing we were just talking about, but
That's
just straight
like
up
the Necro
better.
Thing. Exactly. There's no difference to the condition damage. It's not minus to condition damage. It's plus to power.
Jesus. So what does that mean at 25 stacks? 250 extra power.
250 extra power.
Wow.
Pretty
I like
good.
that. That's a really appropriate minor. I think that's like, that's a good minor right there. I don't know about its strength, but the idea of it as a minor is really good. Wow.
Yeah. So I guess it kind of reduces the for power PS warrior the fun they had dodging around to make sure they got that 10% extra damage boost. But
some people hated that though.
A lot of people hated that. Yeah.
Oh, is that 10% now rolled in elsewhere though?
No, it's not.
Oh, so this isn't going to excite people at all. They're just going to be upset because 10% more damage is worth a lot more than 250 power, isn't it?
Exactly. So it's not all worth a lot more. It's similar to that. It's a similar amount.
Wow. Okay. All right. Well, that's pretty interesting. At least I like how it says might applied to you as well. Like it's very clear that anyone could give you that might. It doesn't actually matter. You know.
Yeah. Well, it just says might now grants you an additional. Yeah. Another interesting thing, lost version.
So what was this? What line is this?
It was Spellbreaker trait that does a certain amount of damage when you remove a boon from an enemy.
Oh yeah, I remember this.
Now does 300% extra damage in PvE.
In PvE? Oh, but there's not enough boons, man.
There is not enough boons in PvE, but there is now a little bit. There's some things running around with boons in PvE. Actually,
the Awakened are good for that. The Awakened do have a reasonable amount of boons. At least in PoF, they did do a bit of that.
Yeah, so I mean, the trait was completely useless before in PvE. Maybe now some people would take it.
Maybe. Still, okay, that's a buff I can get behind.
Yeah.
That's another thing I'll give their credit, by the way. A real good balance of PvE only changes here. I think World vs. World is probably a bit upset that I don't think I've seen a single World vs. World only change in this patch or the other recent one, but still.
Yeah. And finally, Rending Strikes. It's that thing where they change vulnerability to giving you extra stacks based on something you do. In this case, you get stacks of vulnerability on a burst skill.
Right, where was Rending Strikes? I thought it was an arms thing, but it's clearly not.
I think it was an arms thing.
Is it? Okay, well, I can't see it. Anyway, so yeah. What did they change it to, sorry? Not Vuln, but...
It's still Vuln. 5 stacks of Vuln for 8 seconds instead of 1 stack every critical hit or something. But it's 5 stacks for 8 seconds on hitting a target with a burst skill. It's an additional 5 stacks for 8 seconds if that attack is a critical hit.
Oh, okay.
So
if you crit with a burst skill, you're going to put a lot more on.
You get to put a lot more on, yeah. And it says burst skills that strike multiple times have a 5-second internal cooldown between vulnerability applications. But it does seem like, at least with like Berserker, where you use burst skills very often, you're going to be able to put 25 stacks of vulnerability pretty easily.
Yeah, that is good. I like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Pretty easily. There you go. That's it.
Is that it? That's a huge section. Really? That's all that?
That's it. There's just a few Condi changes.
Text error changes as well.
Yeah.
All right, guys. We forgot yesterday. It's really lucky. I was going to upload this right before I went to bed, but in the end I decided to do it in the morning to let it process so you get that 1080p, 1440p instantly. And that ended up being a really good thing because I woke up today and Boots reminded me we didn't talk about Thief on the video. We forgot about Thief.
Yep.
Poor Thief.
Always forgotten. Actually, no, that's usually Necromancer, but no. Poor Thief.
Wow, you just totally went there and did the joke that everyone does. Do you feel creative now?
Yeah, of course.
Do you feel like one of the community?
I've always felt like a part of the community, and now that I've said that, I feel like I'm even more part of the community.
Okay, so we'll run through these fairly quickly. It was not the most profound of things. But so at the start of the video, obviously we talked about the camera thing, and we alluded to one of the biggest consequences of that, and that is daredevils that are running. I won't run the whole spec here, but that's daredevils that are running staff. They used to look down at the ground with their staff too. That was actually only one of 2 fairly reasonable rotations anyway. But yeah, so weakening charge. This skill now moves the thief towards the target, but it won't allow them to travel through the target. So what does this mean? It means you get 1 packet of damage, baby. And people might be upset about that, but I think what we will see is that the devs hopefully tailor the balance to suit that now. Unless they already felt it was in that place, which is why this was so necessary, but I guess we'll see. So anyway, we already talked about that. Some other slight changes. Obviously, these are the Path of Fire days. We did get the Deadeye, and Rifle has not... I mean... I've always said this, Boots. Rifle is like a specific kind of playstyle that isn't particularly gonna be great in a lot of like casual, in a lot of the formats in the game.
It's a single target dealio. It's hard to use in PvE.
Kind of stationary, patient gameplay, right? Patient gameplay, I think is a good description. However, that doesn't mean it doesn't deserve some buffs. So we have had some on the rifle. Pretty big modifier on the auto. 43% more damage from autoing with it. I'm not quite sure how that affects because I've not really played much rifle.
Is that the auto when you're sitting or when you're standing?
I think is it both? Cursed bullet. I'm not sure. I think it's both. Does the auto actually change when you kneel? I'm not sure it does.
I think it does.
It just does increase damage when kneeling.
Yeah.
But I don't think it actually flips the skill itself. Anyway, so yeah, we get buff on that. You also get on the shot that like sets them up with like condis, it like corrupts some of their stuff. Spotter's shot, 18% buff, but only PvE. And then the 3-round burst is an 18% buff in PvE as well. And that's the skill 3. That's funny as well because that rifle 3, that seems to be the bigger damage hit a lot of the time.
It does do a lot of damage, yeah. But 43%, and that's in PvE and everywhere else.
Yeah, the auto is everywhere.
Huh, okay, that's pretty good.
I guess something's happening there. Maybe the comments can explain. I guess something's happening there with regard to initiative and how often people are autoing. That means that it needs to be bolstered everywhere.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just not sure how much autoing was involved in playing as this style of Deadeye, which is something that's still sort of on my bucket list for POF, really.
Yeah.
Moving on, we've also got Death Retreat. They reduced the initiative cost in PvE only, and they made the Condi change. I don't know how I feel about these initiative changes based on game mode, Boots, honestly. I know I'm a big advocate for game type.
Yeah, I just don't know. I mean, Death Retreat, it's the dodge backwards.
After you've nuked someone,
and it's only doing 1 stack of poison instead of 2 stacks of poison. Well, although the thing's longer. I don't know, man. That's like... not a big deal in PvE only at all.
No, yeah, but what concerns me about it is just like, I don't know, the costs of things in those regards. I feel like it could feel really weird transitioning from one game type to the other if you're used to certain initiative costs.
I see what you're saying.
Do you get what I mean?
Yeah.
And it just feels like weird and clunky to you, and you can't quite identify why. But so anyway, they've done that. And then we got a ton of the Condi changes. All right, so caltrops.
The Death Judgment, the big burst when you're kneeling, is also down from 6 to 5.
Oh, sorry, yeah, that's also been dropped, right? So the skill 4 basically on those, and then we get to the Condi stuff, as well as don't stop having its wait, what? Fix a bug in which this trait failed to remove all instances of the listed conditions. Right, so we've seen that in a couple of places. I guess this was a bug that was hitting a lot of these things.
Mm-hmm.
So you did have an interesting thought on the Condi stuff, which I'll let you stay here, and then I'll talk a little bit about as well.
Yeah.
So for Thief, what does this mean?
Well, like, they're supposed to be reducing burst for Condi all over, right? But in here, they do it to several skills, like Caltrops goes down to 1 stack instead of 2, the Ripper down to... Wait a second. The bleeding has been increased for the Ripper.
Oh, yeah, but it's still an intensity change, right? Which is the idea.
No, its bleeding has been adjusted from 3 stacks to 4 stacks.
Oh, yeah, you're right. And for longer. Yeah,
And
no,
for
they
longer.
just straight up buffed it.
They buff the Ripper, they buff Shadow Strike's Torment. They... pressure striking has gone down. That has been done. But again, like the burst from
there's no venom change here, is there?
Exactly. The burst from Thieves has been the bleeding, not the bleeding, the poison burst that you could do like 20 something stacks of poison in a second if you play it properly. And that is not here. They did not change it.
I don't even think it's just that. I think it's a lot of other stuff like the Confuse on Steel and shit like that, actually. I think that...
Oh, yeah, that's a good point. 5 stacks of Confuse on Steel, and that's not changed at all either.
Yeah, none of that's any different. So it's funny, between these 2 sections of the video, I actually played a ton of PvP, guys. And I can tell you that even with these Condi changes, Scourge is still extremely strong. I mean, we speculated at that earlier in the video. It is still very strong. I had some incredible games just abusing Scourge, basically, or queuing with someone who was abusing Scourge. And I've also seen several Condi Thieves are still running around, and they're still fairly goddamn effective. So,
I mean, Thieves in general
are supposed to be... in terms
of spiky
Condi, this is what I mean, though. It's still a very spiky Condi build.
Yes, but then again, Thieves in general are supposed to be bursty, like them as a class. So
for sure.
I guess for them, it kind of still makes sense.
For sure. I mean, there's still a lot of ire being thrown at them in the community, let me just say. If you're playing a Condi Thief in Ranked at the moment, you're going to be called Cancer more than once.
Yeah.
Let me just say, I've seen that a hell of a lot of times. So,
speaking of Cancer...
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Another thing that come to our attention afterwards is the Guardian buff to Merciful Intervention.
Yeah, so, again, this was something we talked a little bit about.
And we were kind of excited about it, to think about it. But
yeah, so people already knew that Firebrand was very strong in PvP as a support. That's what I was queuing in on PvP yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
And I had some extreme success. I haven't PvP'd really in a league since Season 5. I did very well. But I was running Merciful Intervention, and it was a recommended skill already. And now it's just extremely strong. It's like the MVP of the whole build.
Yeah.
I think it is very, very strong. That 20% can, if you play it perfectly, even give you like instant reses sometimes, and that blink in across 1200 range to do it. It is fascinating. It's extremely strong.
Yeah. I think it's got to get a nerf. The 20% is far too strong. I like the idea of a res.
I see. It's interesting. You haven't seen this in action though, have you? You haven't actually played it.
I've seen it in World vs. World. I've seen it in PvP.
Really? Why? The patch was yesterday. You were playing World vs. World yesterday?
Yeah, I was, and I also was watching some streams.
Ah, interesting. Yeah, it is very, very, very potent. I guess in World vs. World as well, a component of it that I missed in PvP that didn't really benefit me that much was the AoE component. Now, it can benefit me, but in like the 20 to 30 games, whatever it was, it didn't really benefit me.
Yeah.
But in World vs. World... Yeah, in World vs. World, I can imagine that just being ludicrous.
And there's already like tons of firebrands being used in World vs. World. So just imagine like 4 firebrands jumping on a pile of corpses.
Yeah, I actually think World vs. World, that has the most potential to be blown completely ludicrously insane. I think it is overpowered. but especially there, definitely.
Yeah.
So anyway, but I mean, we're kind of retreading what we said yesterday.
Yeah, forget about it. We shouldn't do
But
this.
there you go. So that's the Thief, and sorry to Thief players for missing you for the first time around. Oh, by the way, Sundering Strikes as well. The Vuln change happened, same as the Rev thing. It's been renamed to Sundering Shade, and now it causes your stealth attacks to inflict 5 stacks of Vuln. And you get a 1 second ICD, so
okay. That's, cool.
That's pretty nice, and that's what basically you open up with there. And there you go. Oh, there we go. Okay, so neither of us have seen Ellie. We both played a lot of Ellie, though, and we figure we can wing it. So let's scroll on up and see how we go. Shall we leapfrog the changes? No matter how boring they are, we'll read them out to the lovely audience, shall we? And I'll start, I guess. Earthen Vortex. Christ, Earthen Vortex. What is that?
Oh, it's just, bleeding stuff. It looks like all the first, 20 things here is all just the Condi changes.
Yeah, I guess we picked a good class to wing it. All right, so it's just Condi changes, guys. It's reducing stacks from potency
Tell us if we
to
missed
duration.
something that was messed up. Like, if one of the Condi changes buffs something incredibly or nerfs something incredibly, let us know.
Man, look at that Dragon's Tooth one. This is going to be really interesting for PvP. Very little burning on Dragon's Tooth now. For where it matters. People will be cleansing. This is actually going to be quite extreme over there. So let's scroll down, I guess, to something that's not that. I'll go first. Arcane Fury. Okay, so the trait's been replaced. Arcane Fury is no more. So let me just specialize Arcane here so we can have a look at it. The trait's been replaced by Arcane Prowess. And Arcane Prowess grants us Might for 8 seconds when we swap achievements. So we no longer get Fury on swap.
Oh,
we get that. I actually like that because we get enough other sources of Fury, right, on Ellie. Persisting Flames, Fury on Aura. I did used to rely on that.
Stacks of Might, though.
I did used to rely on that.
Me too.
But I think the Might on a Fresh Air build, I actually think that I'd rather have the Might than the Fury because I can get the Fury elsewhere.
I guess, yeah.
Arcane Prowess, how much? It's 1 stack. It lasts 10 seconds. So obviously,
8 seconds it says here.
Oh, okay. I must have a bit of boon
Well,
duration,
you got built-in boon duration for that line, yeah.
Yeah. So the other thing is, I guess, Weaver, because Weaver does procs a lot of this stuff. There's a lot of synergy always between Weaver and Arcane. For raiding, obviously, that's not going to be important, but I don't know. Maybe that's a little bit more of the open world, regular Weaver gameplay that it needs, because I really didn't enjoy much of my time on Weaver in the open world in PoF. So
I guess there's something to be said about the fact that Arcane skills in general are about bypassing the need for precision and fury and doing critical hits no matter what. So why would you build fury into that line?
I guess, yeah, sure.
But so yeah, I get okay, whatever.
All right. You don't seem too hot on it though. I kind of like that.
No, I did rely on it in the past. I remember always on my burst build way back in the day, I relied on that fury to do the crits.
Yeah, I don't know. I remember having done a lot of buildcraft and thinking, oh, this Fury would be good, and then thinking, oh no, but I've got it anyway because of Arcane. So I don't know. Well, we'll see. Do you want to go for the next one? That's going to be Electric Discharge. Sounds like an air trait.
This trait now properly displays its damage. Oh, in the combat log. Okay, great.
Oh, really? All right, you can do another one then. You can do another one. Wait, what? No, that's not right.
And inflicts vulnerability in addition to his previous trait.
Yeah, look, vulnerability boots.
Sorry.
Vulnerability. All right, go on. You can go to the next one. What's this? Weak spot.
Weak spot. This trait has been replaced by Raging Storm, which grants fury for 2 seconds when you inflict critical strikes.
Well, I mean,
there you go.
That's going to pick up the friggin' Arcane change then. Wow.
Yeah. Where was weak spot again?
It's the Grandmaster Minor for air.
Air. Okay. All right.
Wow. Okay.
Makes sense.
And obviously that culls the this was vulnerability. Random vulnerability getting splashed out. So now it's just we get fury, and that's basically perma fury uptime.
Yeah.
If you've got a bit of boon duration rolling around, which you will when you're arcane. So I don't know.
Moves the fury from arcane to lightning. I guess. I mean, it makes sense.
I like that. I like that, and I like the name. I don't know. I always look at the flavor probably too much, but Raging Storm, and then obviously the crit gives you the fury. All right, so next we got and this wow, really? And then that's it, and except the Weaver change. So Lucid Singularity fixed a bug in which this trait failed to remove all instances of its listed conditions.
Right. Not a huge thing. So I noticed though it doesn't change arcane power. That trait that changes arcane power so that you get a burn stack every time you trigger arcane power.
Nope.
So you could still do massive burn burst with elementalist.
This is a very
even after
spiky
these.
burn as component as well. You're right. Yeah.
Yeah, they didn't change that at all. Huh? Okay.
Okay. Well, there you go. Ellie, who do you think came at the bottom of the pile on that one? Then quick roundup.
Bottom of the pile isn't like the worst stuff.
Yeah,
happens to
at
it?
least if you're one of these people that mains it, you refuse to learn anything else about the game. You just have one class, and you're sad that you didn't have enough changes. Do you think Ellie?
Least interesting things for sure. Yeah.
I think if you don't enjoy bursty power sceptry Ellies in non-raiding environments, I think Ellie changes are gonna bore the hell out of you.
Or maybe Guardian. Guardian too, yeah.
Guardian, maybe. I don't know. Again, remember the context of this was a bonus patch, but there you go, guys. That's this. I will have another video coming up where I talk about some of the other changes. Obviously, I'm still in the heat of the competition judging and so forth, so please do bear with me if videos are still a bit sporadic for a little while. But yeah, let us know what you think. We'll be keenly looking at the comments. Thanks for coming along to discuss the balance boots. And we'll see you on the next one, which hopefully will be full-sized as well, right?
That was only 15 minutes, right?
Yeah, it was only a 15-minute. You see, we didn't make the mistake this time of saying it's just going to be a short video, guys. We didn't do it. So anyway, I hope you guys all enjoyed. Thanks very much for watching. We'll see you shortly.
Bye.